Can everyone hear me okay?
Michael, I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And good evening to you, Mr. Alcott. How are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you for holding this evening.
Sure. Thank you. Technical difficulties, but I think we got it working.
And did you need to assign me as co-host or is that already?
Uh, I set it as alternative host
Oh,
earlier in the day.
okay.
I don't know if that's the same as co-host.
All right, we'll find out.
Let me go into the participants list and see if I can see what options it gives me. Just the option to make you host. So I think you should be okay. All right, welcome in everyone. We'll give it just a few more minutes before we get started. Okay, I'm going to do a quick technical check test with everyone. Can you all see the presentation on screen?
No.
Uh,
No, Michael.
You can't see it. Okay. Good. How about now?
yes.
Okay. It would help if I hit the share button. Okay. All right. Well, I won't hold your time. Let's go ahead and get started. My name is Michael Burton. I'm with the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Development. I am joined this evening by my colleague, Clara Johnson, as well as Samantha Archibald. And we are here tonight to talk about the SSPA, the 2025 SSPA nominations for Mason District. This will be the one of three total meetings that we have for Mason District. There are a total of 11 nominations. And so we have four of them tonight. These are the South Mason items. Let me pull up my screen here and we'll go ahead and get started. So for those who may not be familiar with the site-specific plan amendment process, this is a process that the county opens generally every 2 years to invite nominators, property owners, residents to submit proposals for amending the county's comprehensive plan. Typically, these nominations would come in individually before this process was created, but this process allows us to better manage and think about each of the site-specific nominations in a holistic way. So as I mentioned in the beginning, tonight we have 4 different nominations that we're going to discuss with you all. That includes Mason 2, Mason 7, Mason 8, and Mason 47. That's for 6326 Etzel Road, 5300 Shawnee Road, 5505 Cherokee Avenue, and 6850 Versar Center. We'll talk very briefly about the comprehensive plan, what it is, just to provide some context for the work that we'll be doing. And then we'll go through the SSPA process in greater detail so that you all are aware of each of the milestones and how you can participate. So as I mentioned, this is a county-wide process. Again, it opens every 2 years. We accept nominations for amendments to the comprehensive plan. This could include amendments to specific parcels in the county or a collection of parcels in the county. The goal of the process is to offer, the SSPA process specifically is to offer the community the chance to weigh in on some of these ideas before staff begins any formal evaluation. The board has opted to include the items that we'll talk with you, share with you tonight in the screening process, which is where we are now. And this is the first step in a number of steps that we would need to go through before a formal evaluation would begin on any of these ideas. So really briefly, this is just a diagram that highlights the broad spectrum of the land development process. Our work, my work in the Department of Planning and Development is going to focus on the top of that diagram, and that's the conceptual phase as well as the planning and zoning review phase as well. The SSPA process specifically is highlighted in the conceptual phase. And this gives us a sense, just a really high level sense of what some of the ideas are that are being shared with the county. This would include some of the concepts that we'll share with you tonight for each of these ideas. Each of the amendments, as we go through the process, will be reviewed for merit to determine whether or not any of these items should advance into the next phase of the study, which is the planning and zoning review portion. I'm sorry, I have multiple computers here I'm working through. So the comprehensive plan, just for guidance, is a multi-layered policy document that we use here in the county to help us make decisions about land use proposals. It provides recommendations for how land could be used in the future. It talks about how and where growth should be accommodated throughout the county. And it also provides guidance for the protection of both environmental and cultural resources. The comprehensive plan is a requirement by state law. Every locality is required to have one, but the policies that are included in the comprehensive plan are for guidance only. They are not regulatory, and that's something very important to note, that this particular process is not a zoning process. That process would happen subsequent to any planning action that's taken. The comprehensive plan itself is comprised of multiple elements. We have a policy plan. That's the front section if you were to go to the comprehensive plan, and that includes guidance and recommendations for the entire county. And then we have 4 area plans. And within the area plans, you will find more site-specific guidance. Just for reference, all of the Mason items, if you're looking through the comprehensive plan, are found in Area 1. And they include different sections that talk about specific things like land use, public facilities, transportation, environment, parks, and more. One component, a very important component of the comprehensive plan, is what we call the concept for future development. This is found in the area plans guidance. And the map that you're looking at provides a general framework for thinking about how different areas of the county could develop. So the categories that you see here, or the land use classifications that you see here, represent a different set of recommendations for how each of these areas could or should grow and develop over time. There's a concentration of growth in certain areas, particularly in our transit station areas and mixed use centers, and you can see them color coordinated here. Circled, I have generally or broadly the Mason District area, and you can see a number of the activity centers that are included within Mason District. We have 4 what we call community business centers. They're highlighted in red. That includes Seven Corners, Bailey's Crossroads, Lincolnia, which is the newest CBC, and Annandale. These are areas that we, in the plan, where we encourage a higher level of growth. And we also have an industrial area, Beltway South, which is generally located between 495 and Etzel Road. Some of the terms that you're going to hear us talk about often tonight are density, intensity, and FAR. And if any of you have had the opportunity to look through the one-pagers, the summaries that are online for each nomination, you've probably seen those words multiple times. Each one of those terms just represents the way that we talk about how much development it is that we're considering. So for residential density or for residential uses, we use the term density. And we think about how many dwelling units there are within a defined geography, specifically within 1 acre of land. And so the density of a residential development is often described in terms of dwelling units per acre. You'll see that abbreviated often as DU/AC. And you can get a sense here of the range. Single-family home communities, typically in the 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre. Your townhome communities typically go up to the 12 to 16 dwelling units per acre. And then multifamily can go up much higher. For all non-residential uses, this is for commercial uses. That includes office, that includes retail, industrial uses. We describe development or the amount of development as intensity. And intensity really reflects for intensity, we use square footage to determine the amount of development that we might see. And a way that we quantify the amount of square footage compared to the land area is by the formula that you see on your screen. That's called floor area ratio, or FAR for short. And the simplest way to think about it is we divide the building, the square footage of the structure, with the square footage of the parcel or the land that it's on. And the result gives us what we call an FAR. So if you had, for example, a 10,000 square foot building on a 10,000 square foot property, divide them together, that gives you a 1.0 FAR. This is a map of all of the nominations that we've received across the county as a part of the 2025 SSPA cycle. We've received a total of 53 applications. However, the board opted to only advance 43 into the screening process, which is where we are today. At the end of this process, the screening process, the board will make a decision as to which of these items should be added to staff's work program. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. To date, staff has not had the opportunity to conduct any substantive review of any of the nominations. We received the nomination, or the nomination window closed at the middle of February 13th. And essentially all we've had the opportunity to do is to, dot the I's and cross the T's, make sure that all of the information that was requested as a part of the application process was submitted, and to make sure that all of the information that was included was as accurate as possible before sharing. So that period has passed. The board took action on March 4th. That's with the 43 items that have been advanced. We divided those up so that we can manage them through the community meeting process. and that's where we're beginning tonight. So if you're just hearing about any of these nominations tonight for the first time, so are we. We haven't had an opportunity to go through them with a fine-tooth comb. Following this screening phase and the feedback that we hear from tonight's discussion, we will have a community workshop that's with the Planning Commission that will be held at the main government center. And that community workshop, at that community workshop, staff will provide a recommendation as to whether or not we think any of these items should be advanced into the work program for further study. The Planning Commission will also have an opportunity to weigh in on each of these items and also put forth a recommendation. And most importantly, you all will have an opportunity to participate in that process as well. So the workshop is open to the community. Anyone who wants to speak will have the opportunity to speak at the workshop as well. Following the workshops, I will note just quickly, given the volume of nominations that we have, there are going to be multiple workshops that the Planning Commission are going to hold. The Mason District community meetings are happening last, so it's likely that the Mason District Planning Commission workshops will be scheduled last as well. And that information can be found on the webpage. Tentatively, I think it's going to be towards the end of May. But each of the items that we discussed tonight, if you want to comment on them further, you will have an opportunity to do so then. The Planning Commission will then hold a markup session. This will be after the workshops have closed. This will be after all of the feedback has been received, both from staff and the community, in order to formulate their recommendation that they will then pass on to the board. And then by June 10th, that's when all of these items will go before the Board of Supervisors, and they will take action on amending staff's work program. And that work program is essentially a list of all of the planning projects that the Board of Supervisors has asked us to consider. So what happens if a nomination passes the screening phase? As I just mentioned, the nomination would then move to our work program. On that work program, each of our amendments are prioritized at the board's discretion, and they're typically prioritized based on board goals and priorities. So if there are specific nominations that the board thinks advances county goals, they may be tiered or prioritized higher. We have a tiered system on the work program. There's 3 tiers. Most nominations are between tier 1 and tier 2. And so the items that the board thinks have more merit will likely be tier 1. And then items that may need further discussion will likely be tier 2. The timing for each of these nominations after they make it onto the work program will be at the discretion of staff resources and availability. So once a nomination makes it onto the work program, it doesn't mean that a study will happen immediately. There may be some time that passes before we're able to get to some of these ideas. Case in point, our previous SSPA cycle, we still have some nominations that we're working on from 2 years ago. So just to give you a sense of the timeline for some of this. If a nomination does not pass the screening process, it, of course, is not added to the plan amendment work program. It does not mean that the site could not be developed under its current plan guidance. So whatever the current comprehensive plan guidance is for any of these areas, it could still be realized. But it does mean that the specific proposal, the nomination that we'll be talking about tonight, would not be advanced for review. Items could be resubmitted in the future, but we do ask that any resubmission of ideas in a future cycle of SSPA provide a substantive justification. And again, this cycle occurs typically every 2 years. So it would be probably 2027 before this cycle comes back around. All right, this is just a breakdown of the nominations across districts. Again, my name is Mike Burton. I'll be representing the Mason District items at least through the screening phase. We have a total of 11 nominations in the Mason District. This is a map of generally where they are. We have 1 nomination in all of the activity centers, at least 1 nomination in all of the activity centers. That includes 1 in 7 Corners, one in Bailey's Crossroads, one in Annandale, one in Lincolnia, and we have two in the Beltway South industrial area. We've divided the Mason nominations into three meetings, which you can see here on your screen. Tonight is the first meeting. We have another meeting tomorrow night that includes the items along Leesburg Pike. And then I think for many of you who are joining the call, you'll probably be interested in the April 21st meeting date. That will look at 6675 Little River Turnpike, Strawbridge Square, and others. And you can see that on the map here. All right, with that, we will go ahead and get started. I do want to go through just an order of operation for tonight. I will share at a high level what the nomination is, give you all a sense of what the area is planned for today. And then subsequent to that, we've invited the nominators to speak to their justification. And so you'll have an opportunity after each of the nominations are presented and after the nominators have had an opportunity to share their information to ask questions both of staff and the nominators directly. All right. I can't see everyone, so I'll ask folks to bear with me. If you wouldn't mind raising your hand once we get to the Q&A portion. The meeting is scheduled to 9, but we will absolutely give everyone the opportunity to speak, so don't feel pressured. But I do ask for everyone to just be mindful of time. And give me 1 second. I don't know if you all can hear that. Can you hear that noise in the background?
Yeah,
You can. Give me 1
but
second.
it's not terrible.
It's not too bad.
No.
Okay. They have cleaning going on. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can get back to my screen. Okay, I apologize about that. So let's get started. Our first nomination is MA02. This is for 6326 Edsel Road, submitted by Mr. Bruce Alcott, who's joined us this evening. The site represents about 3.5 acres at the intersection of Collier's Lane and Edsel Road. It's right at the entrance to Bryn Mawr Park. So if you've come around the curve, right at Collier's Lane, right at the intersection with Bryn Mawr Drive and Edsel Road, the property is right there to the side. It's currently planned for 3 to 4 dwelling units per acre. And much of the surrounding uses, the residential uses, are similarly planned. I believe the townhomes are up to about 12 dwelling units per acre. And then the single-family home community to the south, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, is also at about 3 to 4 dwelling units per acre. The nomination proposes to maintain the use, that would be residential use, up to 12 dwelling units an acre. So that's an increase from the 4 up to the 12 for inclusion of single-family attached townhomes. Some of the preliminary considerations that we've made are, of course, looking at protecting as much of the vegetation on the site as possible, looking for or expecting improvements to the existing pedestrian and road networks that are adjacent to the site, improving access to Bryn Mawr Park, as well as compatibility with some of the adjacent uses in the area. Right, and we also have a concept image here. I will note just briefly that we asked all submissions to provide a concept, but we wanted to keep things very high level. So the concepts that you see tonight, some of them may be more fleshed out than others, but they may not necessarily reflect what the final design of the site could look like. But this gives you a sense of how the townhomes could be situated on the site. Access would be made from Collier's Lane. And there appears to be some open space. There's some pretty significant topography, which I know if you live in the area, you're pretty familiar with here on the side. That's something else, that the slopes that we'll have to think about as a part of our evaluation. And then I believe there are opportunities for additional access, visitor parking on both ends of the property. All right. And with that, I will stop there and introduce Mr. Bruce Alcott, and he will talk more about his nomination. Mr. Alcott, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. Let's see. At some point, I'm going to want to share my screen, but let's um, keep this up for now. First off, I want to very much thank the community representatives for sharing a letter with us yesterday. We greatly appreciate you initiating this conversation, and we look forward to continuing the discussion with you throughout this process. As you know, we're proposing a small, high-end townhouse community with about 3 dozen homes. We're seeking an R12 classification because we're trying to create a new neighborhood, hopefully with an active HOA, using a property that is, well, relatively small and somewhat isolated in that it's surrounded by parkland and a major street. A strong HOA really isn't viable without a minimum number of families, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here. We also think the adjacent park and nearby playground could benefit from a vibrant residential neighborhood within hearing distance of this community to help monitor the park and preserve public safety. Reading your letter, we understand and completely empathize with your concerns about the tree canopy. We have every incentive to preserve the trees as much as possible for the benefit of both you and our future homeowners. To this end, I'd like to share my screen. Let me see if I can pull this off. And I believe you're all looking at the homes along Edsel Road as part of the Bryn Mawr community. If we scan over, we see I admit, a fabulous vista, particularly in the fall, which is what Google Maps is showing us right now. If you look carefully at this hillside, you'll see most of the trees you're looking at are actually along that steep slope. No townhouses can be built on that steep slope. They're going to have to be set back from the slope. So it's our hope and our expectation that these trees, these mature trees, can be preserved, both to create a visual barrier and to create an audio barrier for the people in those townhouses who'd live there vis-a-vis Edsel Road. Going back to, I was going to go to that other, well, here I have a copy of it too. Our site plan, which Michael was showing. If I can draw your attention over to Collier's Lane, as you can see, we intended to set back the townhouses as much as possible from Collier's Lane with the intent of having more landscaping and trees on that side as well. We're showing a visitor's parking area over there. We obviously could alter that and shrink that somewhat to get more trees and shrubs in there and on the lower corner at the corner of Collier's Lane at Edsel Road in order to preserve the trees as much as possible. And then finally, at the top of the screen, looking at the park, the playground, and the picnic areas, we think all the foliage between the park and the picnic areas could completely obstruct any view of the townhouses from that area. Also, returning you back to Collier's Lane, we acknowledge your points about improvements to Collier's Lane. We identified in our proposal the need for improvements on that lane. The county did so in its summary paper, as Michael just mentioned. And we have we completely agree and want to be a part of those improvements, including at least one additional sidewalk, which we tried to mock up in our visualization right here. We also agree with you that a controlled sidewalk is needed across Edsel Road at Collier's Lane to link the Jefferson Green community to the park. And we're happy to discuss the role that we should play in its installation. This is a long process, so we definitely want to discuss these things with you. We've also committed to funding park improvements, and we're happy to discuss how those contributions will be targeted within the park. Well, we assume the Parks Department will play a big role in that. And finally, we were very intrigued when the community representatives suggested in their letter, or strongly posited in their letter, that we should fund memberships for our future homeowners in the Bryn Mawr Recreation Center. We think that's a fantastic idea, and we look forward to learning more from you as this process goes on about how that works in your various communities. So with that, I could hit some other points, but I think the best thing to do now is to return the floor and to let people provide some comments and questions. Thank you very much for spending part of your evening with us tonight.
Awesome. Mr. Alcott, thank you so much, sir. And let me quickly switch to participants. And I see a first hand, Mr. Ray. Feel free to unmute yourself and go right ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, both Michael and Bruce, for this wonderful presentation. I want to just kind of start off by saying that our communities, I think, we're a very kind of collaborative and cooperative kind of associations that have all come together over the recent years to kind of further strengthen and support what is becoming a vibrant community in Bryn Mawr. And so we're in no ways opposed to this proposal, but I think we have some recommendations and concerns that we wanted to share kind of at the beginning of this discussion as it begins through the entirety of the process. And so that was the intent and purpose and kind of behind our letter. And so I wanted to first, I had one specific question for Bruce, kind of based on the presentation, and then I'll go into a few of our recommendations. On the screen that you shared, the homes that are closest to Collier's Lane and Edsel Road, it looks like some of them back up as close as they possibly can to the property line there, right kind of where the box of visitor parking is labeled. I'm wondering if you could elaborate, will the existing kind of trees that are there still be preserved in your mind? For the row of townhouses that are closest to Collier's Lane. I think that is a concern specifically for those of us who live in Bryn Point and Jefferson Green in terms of view in particular. So I was just curious about that.
And that's something that we can work on. The visitor parking is something we stuck in there, but obviously a tree line is needed there, and we completely agree with that. The beyond our property, there is some green space there between Edsel Road, but I think a lot of that is land. I'm sorry, a lot of that is lawn, or whatever's there, and so getting some trees there would be a good idea. I mean, Tyler, you've got to admit, the people who are going to be purchasing those townhouses along the southern line are going to want as much as they can
Of course.
in terms of visual and audio barrier between them and Edsel Road, particularly at that point in the topography.
Yeah.
Over to the left, those guys are going to be high up,
Yeah.
and will have their own set of trees. So we definitely would like to create a visual barrier in there, if it means moving the visitor parking spaces or reconfiguring them somehow. That's definitely a goal that we want. One of the reasons I will say that the townhouses are so close to the southern property line is because we had an introductory call with the Parks Department, the first of many, I expect, to talk to them about this proposal and get their suggestions. And they very much wanted an open space border across the top between the development property line and the individual homeowner property lines, so that the homeowners wouldn't feel like they could inch their way into the parkland. And we completely agreed. So we created that barrier there. Once we get down to true architectural drawings, we may be able to squeeze the two rows of townhouses together and have them closer together. We are talking about garage parking, so we're not going to need a parking lot in between the rows of townhouses, as is the case up in the Overlook community. So, I mean, these things are all being discussed, and we very much agree with you on those points.
Great. Yeah. And as a community and have been kind of forced to go through kind of the county process and on different issues, we've become aware of the need to kind of speak at the very beginning. And so that's kind of why we are hoping to get it at the ground floor for this, basically.
Mhm.
The few kind of comments that I had generally more for staff's awareness as they begin to look through this proposal. Our community has been significantly impacted by a potential data center that may be coming into the Plaza 500 site, which is about 800 feet from this proposed location. As part of that process, the county still has to go through a 2232 review to ensure that a proposed substation and transmission lines are compliant with the county's comprehensive plan. Our kind of request and proposal to the county is that with this proposal being in such close proximity to this proposed substation, transmission line and data center, and also the county reviewing kind of whether an appropriate comprehensive plan amendment is appropriate here. Obviously, those two factors need to be considered on the overall impact. Our strong recommendation as a community is that the 2232 for the substation be denied and that the focus be on expanding the residential use in the area, which I think could be partially achieved through this application. So I just encourage staff to kind of be cognizant of what changes are occurring in the county in terms of development and kind of what's consistent with the comprehensive plan or not. This location is the State Corporation Commission is currently reviewing the substation and transmission line proposal and has not yet made a decision on it. So there's a possibility that it could not end up there. But I think kind of as the process moves forward, just being aware of that as well is going to be important. The other few points that I had to make regard kind of the zoning designation request being R12. I understand that my community, for example, Brent Point is zoned R12, I believe, but we're also a significantly larger acreage in size. There are similar townhouse communities like the Ridges of Edsel, which is zoned a smaller dwelling unit per acre and is a similar size and acreage. And so we feel that if it's not possible to preserve the tree canopy and kind of preserve other things that would be better suited for a smaller dwelling unit per acre, that it could potentially be considered that the rezoning request that I know is being filed, a pre-application concurrently with this, be considered for a potentially reduced size or make all efforts to ensure that the existing number of units doesn't impact the total tree canopy or the existing open space. I know there are references in the application to potentially needing a waiver for that. And so I think kind of all of those are things that are just concerns for us. If it's going to be so large at the expense of kind of open space or tree canopy, we have concerns about that. And then I really great to hear from Mr. Alcott on kind of wanting to preserve the tree canopy and wanting to preserve the park space. That's all something we strongly support. And then great to hear that the community enhancements are things that they are interested in doing as well. And so I think one of the things that our communities are required to do as part of our community proffers, which I understand is a different process than the comprehensive plan, is to be members of the Bryn Mawr Recreation Association. So that includes Jefferson Green, Bryn Point, and the Isabella. And it seems fitting that given the proximity to the Bryn Mawr Recreation Association, that this new community would be developed similarly. So we welcome this potential new community to kind of the Bryn Mawr community and kind of joining our associations to create a strong, vibrant community overall. And so thanks for the opportunity to share some of our comments.
Awesome. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And likewise on the letter, we received that. And just so that everyone knows, if you have comments tonight, we are collecting them. If there's something that maybe you think of after the meeting and you want to share, you are welcome to send that to me, and we'll make that a part of a package that we share with the Planning Commission and the board. So thank you. We really appreciate it. All right. Any other questions regarding MA02 or questions for Mr. Alcott? All right, hearing none, we will continue moving forward. Let me share my screen once more. All right, our second nomination is located at 5300 Shawnee Road. This is MA007 or 007, as I like to call it. This is within the Beltway South industrial area. It's at the northern end of the Beltway South industrial area. And the property, the subject property, is about 2.5 acres. It's currently planned and developed with transitional office use. All of the office uses along Shawnee are planned as transitional uses to the surrounding residential communities. And that planned office use is at a 0.5 FAR. So it's roughly half of the total size of the site, and that includes multiple floors. The planned recommendation or the proposed recommendation is to convert the use to residential at a density of 16 to 20 dwelling units per acre. That would be multifamily uses specifically. The surrounding uses to the west are single family homes. Again, this is a transitional space along Shawnee. And then we have some higher intensity residential uses to the east, which are also located in the Beltway South industrial area. There are environmentally sensitive areas along the northern portion of the industrial area that follow along Indian Run. And then just south of this image, Shawnee Road connects with Cherokee and Etzel Road. And the concept, as you can see here, would retain a lot of the footprint of the existing parking for the site. I believe the parking in the back might be there, or this may be slightly modified, but the building structure and the volume of the building would remain, or the building structure would not remain, but the size of the proposed building would be consistent with the existing intensity. And Ashley, I think I had your concept after it. I just had this out of place. So this is one of the concept images that were shared by the nominator. Again, this is for multifamily at roughly the same height and same size as the existing office building. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Mrs. Ashley Kyle with Roth Jackson to speak more about this project.
Thank you, Michael. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, and I will pull your slides up here in 1 second.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, community members, for joining us tonight. I am very excited to present this to you. As Michael was explaining earlier, this is the first step in a very long process for all of these nominations. And the comp plan amendment, what we're doing is we're asking for a change on a very broad level, and then we get down to the more detailed level when we go to seek a rezoning for this. I can share my screen too I've got it up.
In 2 seconds, I think. Yes, here we go.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, so we're at 5300 Shawnee Road in Alexandria. You can go to the next slide. And what we are proposing here is a proposal for an upscale apartment complex. And for the comprehensive plan, what we are proposing to change is the use from office use to residential use at 16 to 20 dwelling units an acre. As Michael was saying, the property is about 2.5 acres. And it's currently used it has an office structure and surface parking. We are proposing 50 multi-family dwelling units. We get 50 from 2.5 acres times 20 gives us 50. but we're hoping to break it into 45 market rate units and 5 affordable dwelling units. We're not seeking a significant height increase. We're not seeking a floor area ratio increase. This new plan does increase open space somewhat, and we do plan to preserve existing vegetation and mature trees. The nominator, David Mons, is here with me tonight, and he's a representative of the nominator, has personal and professional ties to the area, and it is important to him to approximate housing alternatives and affordable housing in the area. So that's why he's proposing to do this. Next slide. This just shows you where we are, right there on Shawnee, highlighted in blue. We're right next to I-395 to the northwest, and then we're north of Edsel. Next slide. And again, we're highlighted in blue here. So the pink designation is what we are now, that is office use. And what we would, and as you can see, we're surrounded to the north and to the south by office. We're surrounded to the east by industrial, and to residential to the west at a lower density than what we're proposing here. So we're proposing brown, which is 16 to 20 dwelling units an acre. And as you can see, there is some other like areas across 395 at that same density, which is still considered a medium density. And then there's also residential, as I was saying, to the west of us. That's the Cherry Hill, I'm sorry, Indian Springs community to the west of us in the yellow. And then there is the Windy Hill at Lincolnia further across I-395. So what I'm trying to say, just point out, is that there is other residential in the area, even though we are currently slotted as office industrial. Okay, next slide. This is a picture of the existing structure. Next slide. And this is kind of a wide scope of Shawnee Road running up through the middle there. What I'd like to point out here, though, is that we have larger, taller buildings surrounding us. So what we're proposing to do is compatible with the surrounding area, and we believe will fit in quite nicely aesthetically. And then we are also proposing to keep that beautiful tree canopy that's sitting there right behind our property, just to provide buffer to the residential area to the west. Okay, next slide. And as Michael briefly showed us, this is our conceptual plan. So we're proposing 4 stories, and again, the height is in line with other structures in the area. Most of the parking there is going to remain from what's there now, and then the building footprint will extend slightly to the north, but then we do intend to keep the mature tree canopy to the northwest. There we go. Okay. Here are some elevations and materials. So please, note that these are conceptual only. We're kind of going for a modern facade, but this design could fluctuate throughout the process for sure. Okay. So just to kind of go through what the staff is going to consider as they evaluate this nomination, and I'll try to get through this as quickly as I can, but the first thing we're going to take a look at is whether or not this nomination addresses emerging community interest, and we believe it does, because affordable housing options, the need for it has increased, and this property is so close to major economic hubs and roadways that makes it a very desirable location for affordable housing in the multifamily format. Does the nomination advance objectives of the county's plan for future development? Yes, we believe it does. If you could go to the next slide. These are the objectives in the current comprehensive plan that staff pointed out in their one-page memo, Objective 8, Objective 14, and then Appendix 9. So Objective 8 and Objective 14 strive to maintain stability of established residential neighborhoods, to include land patterns that protects what's already there and that fits in well. 14, somewhat similar but somewhat different. We definitely want to make sure we're achieving a harmonious and attractive development. So any infill development needs to be compatible with what's already there in the surrounding areas. And we definitely think that we we are doing this with the footprint and the height and the elevations of the property. And then Appendix 9, these are the residential development criteria that will be evaluated during the rezoning stage. So we will certainly have many chances to evaluate all of these issues that come to play with any residential development. As I wanted to make note of the height of the building, just to bring that back, we do believe that we're compatible with what's already existing. Okay. And then this is the proposed amendment language in the comprehensive plan. This is a little further down the road, but this is what we actually would propose to write into the plan, is that our tax map parcel there would be considered for residential development. And then we have some protective covenants that we'd be willing to put directly into the comprehensive plan. Just to highlight a couple of big things, we will, commit to preserve landscaping, to replace vegetation that's lost because of the development, if any, put in pedestrian walkways, and have on-site amenities for the future residents, like a fitness center, bicycle storage, and common areas for gatherings. Okay. Then does the nomination align with the goals of board adopted policies? We believe that the nomination helps accomplish policies concerning affordable housing. We would provide 45 market rate units and 5 long-term affordable dwelling units. This also provides, the market rate units themselves provide just a housing alternative in the area. There aren't very many other multifamily apartment structures. So this definitely provides something different for people that are looking for that. Does the nomination balance public resources with a public benefit? We have done a preliminary traffic study just to kind of cut to what people typically think of the traffic, and it does show no adverse impact to existing roadways. As we go through the process and through our rezoning, we will of course take a closer look at it, but a preliminary study shows that there won't be any adverse impact. And then finally, is the current use or comprehensive recommendation viable? The existing office building is somewhat underutilized, and we think transitioning to a high quality multifamily development will lessen rent burden of the property's future residents, and then increase supply, which will create a positive ripple effect for other renters in the area. Also, we plan to do this with minimal disruption, and the current commercial tenants that are in the building, we plan to help them relocate nearby. And when I say affordable housing, I mean the exact same quality as the other units in the building, and all different types of neighborhoods usually contain affordable housing, single family neighborhoods, townhomes. It's not just a multifamily thing. And finally, we want to be good neighbors. You can go to the next slide. And so we're doing what we can in terms of community engagement. This is the first big step. We've been in touch with Supervisor Jimenez, and he is aware of the application and supports the process. We've been in touch with owners of neighboring office structures. We've reached out to the management company for Windy Hill at Lincolnia, the development to the southeast, and then we also plan to reach out to the Indian Springs community to the west. And that brings me to the end of the presentation, so I'm ready to take any questions that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. Let me get back to screen. If anyone does have a question, please just raise your hand or hit the hand icon. Okay, I don't see any hands. Are there any questions for staff or for the nominator regarding MA07 for Shawnee Road? All right, we'll keep moving. We'll have the next one here. All right. The third nomination this evening is MA008. This is located quite literally just down the street from the previous nomination. And I believe Mrs. Kyle is also representing this nomination as well. This is located at 5505 Cherokee Avenue. It concerns two parcels with two existing structures at 1.5 acres. The parcels, again, are a part of the Beltway South Industrial Area. They are planned for office use currently up to a 0.3 FAR. And the nomination that we'll be talking about tonight would like to consider an alternative use, commercial use at the same intensity. So also at a 0.3 FAR. And more specifically for a service station use, a gas and service station use. Here is a picture of their concept. You can see here that they've identified the service station owner as a Sheetz, potentially a Sheetz. There are two access points. There's a right-in access point from Cherokee as you make a right from Etzel Road onto Cherokee. And then there's a full access point directly onto Cherokee to the north with the existing interparcel access being maintained. All right, and with that, Ashley, I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Would you be able to put up my PowerPoint presentation for this one?
Absolutely.
Again, thank you to the community for being here and participating in the process, and for county staff. We look forward to working with you on both of these nominations. Okay, so I'm very pleased to present our plan for the second Sheetz in Fairfax County. That's surprising to me. I live in Loudoun County, so we have Sheetz all over the place, but this would only be the second one in Fairfax County, the first being in Herndon. Okay, you can switch. So for this particular piece of property, what we would be proposing to change the comprehensive plan would be from commercial use to retail and other use. So the current use, there are two office structures totaling 40,600 square feet, and then related surface parking. What we're proposing to do is put a Sheetz fueling station and a convenience store in place of it. The overall building height would actually decrease. We do have existing wireless facilities on top of one of the existing buildings that we would need to relocate as part of this process. And we're also not seeking any kind of floor area ratio increase to the 0.3, as Michael was saying. Okay. Like the other property, this one is close by. However, it's down a lot closer to Etzel Road, nestled between Etzel Road and Cherokee Avenue. Next slide. And so we are gray here. So we are slotted industrial, but we are proposing to be red. So retail and other commercial use. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of red currently in the general vicinity to the northwest, and then also to the southeast across from I-395. So it's not unusual. I mean, or it's not, we do have like spots coming up very, very close to us. So we believe that this is a natural transition. Okay, next slide. This is one of the existing structures. I couldn't get a good picture of the other one, but this is one of them that's right on the corner of Cherokee and Etzel. Okay, next slide. And then here's a better view of the neighboring structure. So that's the red brick building right there. And then right next to it, the white building is the other structure. These are two parcels, so we would be consolidating them into one to put the Sheetz. As you can also see further down Etzel to the west, there are a couple of other gas stations. There's a Shell, and there's also an Exxon. So similar uses are within the neighborhood there. And then if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. This is our concept plan. So the convenience store is sort of to the right there. And then the awnings that would contain the fueling structures is to the right, closer to the corner of the Cherokee Avenues. Okay, next slide. Here are some elevations. I think almost all of us have seen a Sheets before, so nothing crazy here. We're looking at about 26 feet tall, so shorter than what's currently there. I believe what's currently there is the taller building is 45 feet. We're not proposing any kind of drive-through or car wash for this location because the size of the parcel just doesn't warrant it. You can continue to the next slide. This is just the back. It's a nice brick facade. And then next, I'll just go through the same staff considerations. So does the nomination address emerging community interests? We think so. I am a huge fan of Sheets personally. We think that, Sheets is unique because it is more of an upscale, it offers more of an upscale convenience store than other gas stations, and it provides access to warm food and convenience items, groceries, to those around it. It's the closest warm food options. We did some research, is across the major interstate. So that would be Panera and Dunkin' Donuts. And then the closest grocery option is about 1.5 miles away, and that would be Giant. So this would give the immediate area better access to warm, more healthy, there are salads, sandwiches, just a vast array of convenience items too. I mean, medications, groceries, it definitely adds a lot to the current landscape. Does the nomination advance objectives of the county's plan for future development? Yes, the nomination expands retail to the southeast, not into the residential development to the north or west. And then this property itself, it's really too small for a large scale industrial use. And we think that this is the highest and best use for it once we combine both parcels. Most industrial uses require much more square footage than what these two parcels offer. It is kind of right there on an island there in between Cherokee and Edsel. So we think that this just makes a lot of sense. So if you go to the next two slides, this is the actual proposed amended language that we would like to see in the comprehensive plan. We just basically add our two parcels into the already those red parcels that are there along Edsel Road that may be redeveloped with retail uses. And the comprehensive plan definitely says that the residential neighborhood to the west and north, needs to be protected from commercial encroachment. But we, if you go to the next slide, are going the opposite direction. We are going down to the southeast. So we don't believe that that's prohibitive. Okay, next slide. Okay, does the nomination align with goals of board adopted policies? Yes, it furthers the policies of access and economic opportunity, provides local residents, employees, and commuters with access to warm food and groceries. It's a nice, safe, and secure place to stop for a cup of coffee. Sheets is well renowned for its security, its cleanliness. It's just a really great place to stop. It'll also add jobs and cause competition amongst existing fueling options. Does the nomination balance public resources versus public benefit? Yes, the benefits mentioned above will balance any kind of traffic or vehicle access and circulation issues. Appropriate studies to this effect will be conducted during the later phases of this planning and zoning review process. It's just important to know also that Sheets actually generates mostly pass-by trips. These are people that are already on the road anyway, and very, very few new trips. So that's also important to note once we start talking about traffic impact. And is the current use or comprehensive plan recommendation viable? So the existing office buildings are underutilized, and the property itself is too small for large-scale industrial use, like I was saying. So we think a high-quality convenience store and fueling station will absolutely thrive at this busy intersection. And then just like the other application, we're going to work with the existing commercial tenants to help them relocate nearby, so it won't be super disruptive to the community. Also want to be good neighbors here. Supervisor Jimenez and Harity are aware of the application and support the process. The same owner of the neighboring office structure on Shawnee is supportive. We're going to reach out to, we're hoping to talk to the Windy Hill Lincolnia development and also the Indian Springs community. And then we're in contact with the adjacent property owner regarding access and vehicular circulation. So with that, thank you very much. I'll open it to questions.
Thank you again. And let me see if I can stop sharing so I can see the rest of the chat. Okay, I see one hand. Josh, go right ahead.
Oh yeah, I just really appreciate all the explanations. It was very detailed, and it's really helps to really understand how the property is going to be used. Um, and as someone who lives near a convenience store, within walking distance, I really appreciate that. I hope the current and future residents will be able to take advantage of that.
Great, thank you.
And Mr. Ray, go right ahead.
Awesome. Definitely also echo sheets are great, and that area in particular really doesn't have a lot of food options, especially kind of fast casual options. And I think it would be a great addition to that site, especially moving it from a more industrial use to a more commercial use. That's, I think, more consistent with the surrounding area. My question was, I know you mentioned on one of the last slides that kind of it would be a little more increased like a busier intersection, and have you looked to see if any kind of changes to that intersection or anything would be needed as part of this, especially with, I know the 395 Edsel on ramp is right there too and gets backed up sometimes. So just curious about that.
So we have done some preliminary work to look at it. Nothing super intensive yet, but we absolutely will as part of the rezoning process. So definitely more on that to come. We're going to examine the entrances to see if there's anything that needs to be expanded or moved, to better serve the sheets. And then, like I say, I mean, the research from sheets is that most people are on the road anyway, so it's not like they're really creating anybody new. It's just people that would stop though, and be attracted to that site nonetheless. So please stay tuned for that once we get more underway with the process and we have official studies done.
Great. My last point that I forgot to mention, gas in that area is notoriously kind of the highest gas that kind of in the surrounding area. So I definitely appreciate the increased competition that Sheets will provide, especially for that Shell station that seems to price gouge people. So
great. Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Ray, thank you. Again, if you have questions or you think of a question after the call, my contact information will be at the end of the presentation. We'll make sure that we can forward it to all of the nominators. Ashley, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, let's see our share here, and we'll move on to our final nomination this evening. Okay, our last nomination for this evening is located at 6850 Versar Center. This is MA047. And this site, many of you have probably seen it, or maybe you haven't if you've been paying attention to the road, but it's right at the northwest corner of the intersection of I-495 and 395. So if you're heading westbound, if you're coming south on 395 and heading westbound on 495, you would have seen this building over to your right-hand side. The property is a total of two separate parcels totaling about 15.7 acres. Backlick Run is a major feature of the site. It runs directly through the center of the site, and there's a pretty significant grade change. There are two office buildings currently developed on the site, as well as as structured parking. The site is planned for office use up to a 0.35 FAR, and this particular nomination is also proposing a change in use to allow for commercial use at the same intensity of 0.35 FAR. Just to locate you again, there's only one access point to the site. That's, I believe, Heckinger Drive. If you're familiar with the Backlick Road VRE station, it's right here at the top left-hand side of your screen, just to orient you. So the concept here shows one building. Both of the existing office buildings would be removed. The office building that's further to the west would be replaced by a single-story commercial structure up to 50,000, roughly 50,000 square feet. The existing structured parking would remain. The second office building that's sort of at the rear of the property, closest to the interchange, would be removed and replaced with surface parking as inventory for the commercial use. You can see here demarcated in the yellow, there are extensive environmental features on the site that we would look to protect. And I believe, at least in this concept, the development is reflecting that they're looking to develop the portions of the site that are outside of the current floodplain. And with that, I believe I saw Mr. Schneider.
Yes, I'm right here. Thank you, Michael.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. The floor is yours.
We'll start out and confirm, yes, there will be no building within the floodplain. So hello, everyone. I know going last, I'll try to make it brief. David Schneider with Holland and Knight and represent the landowner versus our property owner LLC. I'm joined today by Mike Laughlin with the ownership. And if you'll pull up our slides, Michael. So while he's doing that, to keep it moving, well, Michael said, it's a very unique site. I mean, we have access from Heckinger Drive off a cul-de-sac. Let's see where. I mean, yep. Probably you can go to the next one.
Okay. Okay.
There
we
we
go.
go. So again, access off the cul-de-sac off Heckinger Drive. It's really isolated. I mean, it's between, you can look at the mixing bowl and the VRE, the train tracks. It's an isolated site. As Michael said, it's currently occupied with two buildings totaling 225,000 square feet of GFA, gross floor area. And these buildings are predominantly vacant, mostly all vacant. One building has I believe like a short-term tenant so it's about 2.5% occupied. If you go to the next slide. The site was rezoned to the I-5 district in the 70s and then the other parcel in the early 80s. And in 2023, the property owner obtained a special exception approval to allow for redevelopment of the site with certain environmental protections to make sure that we understand it is an environmentally sensitive site. So we wanted to, before going into that, we know that's in place because there's no office market in these old buildings, and it's a tough office location. I mean, the plan calls for office. There's just no demand for office, this isolated between these massive infrastructures. If we go to the next slide. Again, showing the site, and you can see Versa Center Drive, which is, the internal roadway. Next slide. So again, it's a challenging site. You can see it's set down below the highway. So to visibility, to Michael's point, like maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. And there's, we really believe it's only suitable for a destination commercial use, that someone needs to be looking for this property and to find it. And it's not just as great as the previous application is with Sheets, that's what someone might be driving by and say, oh, I need something from there and go in. This has to be a destination site for it to be viable. So our request is narrow, and it's just to add an option in the comp plan to allow for vehicle sales. And so if you go to the next slide. So I believe actually go back for a second. I believe out of all the SSP nominations that came in, this meeting is, I think we have two, we're one of the three that are for commercial uses. I think the rest are predominantly residential, and I think that's important to note, that we need to also increase our commercial base. And so I was asked to provide some details about the environmental approvals. So as I said, in 2023, we had a special exception amendment. We had to study all the environmental features. We had to get an Army Corps of Engineers jurisdictional determination, an RPA delineation, and there was a lot of time. We worked with county staff, the Mason District Land Use Committee, who ended up unanimously supporting the special exception. the planning commission, the board, and took up a long time to come up with the viable conditions. Now we'll just kind of flip through the next and kind of the environmental slides quickly, just to give you a sense. So this shows that we had to identify every line on the property, per, if you go to the next one, we had to calculate how much impervious there was. And the black dashed line is important here because that was what is the board approved limit of redevelopment on the site. And you'll see on our concept plan how our design honors that limits of redevelopment. If you go to the next, we also had to have a building restriction line. So while development might occur certain places, where the building can be located has to be within this red footprint. I go to the next. So on part of the special exception, it allowed certain permitted uses within the I-5 district and all special exception uses. I will say that, through lots of discussion, we made it clear that this is not a data center site, so not going there. But the uses that are by right on this site right now are special equipment and heavy vehicle sale, rental, or service establishment, heavy vehicle repair or maintenance, new vehicle storage, an impound lot, a production or processing facility, a freight distribution hub. And so there's a lot of industrial and very commercial uses that are already allowed on the site. We negotiated a lot of conditions, and this is just an excerpt of some of them there that goes on for pages. But a lot of them are important that are already pre-negotiated here, that vehicle repair must occur in a structure, and it has to be basically in a LEED certified building with green building certification. We're going to have revegetation. I know in staff's one pager, they talked about, salt management, and there's already a condition that was negotiated with county staff and imposed by the Board of Supervisors on that. If you'll go to the next slide, please. So high level, and Michael did this, and it's a pretty simple plan, but just want to, we're staying within the redevelopment area that was approved with the dealership building on the western side, vehicle inventory on the eastern side. Quite frankly, until we know the scope, and this is only at the comprehensive plan level, we hatched the area. We don't know as it gets further, and we don't know what will be needed there. So just wanted to show that's where that intended use is supposed to, or we believe it could go as a concept plan. If you go to the next slide. So again, this is a very narrow amendment. All we're asking is to add an option in the comp plan to allow for vehicle sales. So in the I-5 district, only passenger vehicle rental is allowed, not passenger vehicle sale. So we can right now rent a passenger vehicle, but we can't sell a new vehicle on the site. But when you go back to the list of uses that I said were allowed, and you have specialized equipment and heavy vehicle sale, so we can, it's kind of just a funny anachronism of some of our zoning districts, that we could sell a dump truck, a trash truck, a cement mixer, a semi truck, a bus, and farm equipment, but we can't sell a brand new car. And so in approaching county staff, we said we'd like to be able to do this, and it's not allowed in the I-5 district. And so because vehicle sales isn't allowed in the I-5 district. So we would need to rezone to another district that allows it. Any rezoning is reviewed for conformance with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan does not contemplate vehicle sales. It contemplates office here, because when this comp plan was done, the reason this is Versar Center is there was a Versar Corporation, and this was built out as its headquarters. And I think the plan was that they would stay. They packed up. It was specially built out for them. They're now unfortunately in DC. And we now have a vacant office park here, but the plan wasn't updated with that. So again, really narrow change, only just seeking to add that vehicle sales is allowed. The rest is a lot of this is already negotiated. And of course, we'll continue to work with the community, the Mason District Land Use Committee, the Supervisor's Office, the Planning Commission staff, and all of you. It is a significant reduction in the existing building size. And with that going from office, it's in the other approved uses, a vehicle, we believe, is a better transportation story. So with that, I think that's the last slide. Just want to say thank you. Happy to address any questions. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Sharing, I'll get back to the participants list. Are there any questions for Mr. Snyder or for staff? Don't all speak at once. Okay. All right. Well, let me just quickly reiterate, or first let me thank you all, everyone who joined this evening. It's very much appreciated. It really does make our job easier if we hear from folks as early as possible in any of our processes. So thank you for making and taking the time to join us this evening. Let me share really quickly just my email address, and what I'll do actually is just drop it in the chat. So that if you have any questions following this meeting, feel free to email me directly. It's Michael Burton, Michael.Burton at fairfaxcounty.gov. Please stay tuned to our webpage regarding the SSPA process for the Planning Commission workshop dates. I don't have the exact date in front of me now, but I'm fairly certain it's towards the end of May. Again, if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me directly. We look forward to your participation then. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.